Jacob Mangley, and today on Comics Corner we're talking one of my favorite subjects, comic strips. Now ever since I got Calvin and Hobbes book from my Aunt Paul when I was just a wee little lad about 7 or 8, hey, I just love the medium. I grabbed whatever books I can, read whatever I could, read them at the library, and I've been hooked ever since. And my favorite way of reading them these days is on the Go Comics app on my phone. That's not to shill. When I first got my phone, it was the first time in years I read comic strips daily. I just never got around to it on my computer, and now I'm reading it on the app. I question why. I love reading new strips every day, even the bad ones. And trust me, we'll get to those. But today's subject is kinda more somewhere in the middle. It's not necessarily a bad strip, but this is a really bad storyline, and it highlights a lot of the flaws the strip has. Today we're taking a look at Dick Tracy and the Comic Con Caper. Dick Tracy was created by Chester Gould in the 1930s. It was a rough and tumble action strip, one of the first and one of the only ones still standing today. It's centered around Detective Dick Tracy, who'd been hired by the police department and hunted down gruesome and ghastly villains. There's also a period in the 60s where he drove to the moon in a space coupe. His son married an alien, and they had a daughter named Honeymoon, who's very much relevant to today's story. Comics are weird no matter what form they come in. Well, the strip has changed creative team multiple times. For the sake of brevity, today I'm just focusing on the tag team of Joe Stanton and Mike Curtis. Took over from the apparently batshit previous writer and have since done a great run that has gotten Harvey Awards. From what I read of it, it's pretty decent. Admittedly, the first arc I read was kind of the Spirit crossover arc, because that's a thing that actually happened and actually took up months of the comic strip and resulted in the Spirit dating one of the supporting cast. Yes, really. But it was really good. Then we got to this one. Oh boy, this is a weird one. Not only does it waste a great premise, but it takes a weird ass turn about halfway through. Dick Tracy was created by Chester Gould in the 1930s. It was a rough and tumble action strip, one of the first and one of the only ones still standing today. It's centered around Detective Dick Tracy, who'd been hired by the police department and hunted down gruesome and ghastly villains. There's also a period in the 60s where he drove to the moon in a space coupe. His son married an alien, and they had a daughter named Honeymoon, who's very much relevant to today's story. Comics are weird no matter what form they come in. Well, the strip has changed creative team multiple times. For the sake of brevity, today I'm just focusing on the tag team of Joe Stanton and Mike Curtis. Took over from the apparently batshit previous writer and have since done a great run that has gotten Harvey Awards. From what I read of it, it's pretty decent. Admittedly, the first arc I read was kind of the Spirit crossover arc, because that's a thing that actually happened and actually took up months of the comic strip and resulted in the Spirit dating one of the supporting cast. Yes, really. But it was really good. Then we got to this one. Oh boy, this is a weird one. Not only does it waste a great premise, but it takes a weird ass turn about halfway through. Let's get started. Today's adventure centers around a cosplay convention. Now I will admit, I don't know a lot about cosplay. I have a few friends in it who love doing it, and I've wanted to do it myself, but I really don't know jack about cosplay conventions, that sort of thing. thing. And sadly, I've never even been to a con. I really want to go, I just haven't had the money. But as we'll get into, the story really doesn't delve into the con aspect that much, so I'm good. The con is run by our antagonists for the evening, the Margies. Big Margie, Medium Margie, and Little Margie. Big Margie is the leader and the looks. Medium Margie is the brains. And Little Margie is the muscle and also the innocent Lenny Smalls XP for the night. They're also planning to steal from the convention in one of the most stupid schemes I've ever considered. Now I bet you're wondering, what the fuck does this have to do with Dick Tracy? To answer the question, his granddaughter's attending the convention is someone named Chimera, who I assume the creators made up, but could be a real character. I don't know, and I'm okay with not knowing. If she is a real character, feel free to correct me in the comments. She's also visiting her good friend Aster, who's minor, and I could only glean little tiny globs of information from the Dick Tracy wiki. She asked Dick to accompany her, and he's nice enough to oblige. Being a good ageless grandpa. And thus off they go. Also, a horror host named Spenguli is hired to MC. Now you may be wondering, why the heck did I mention that? They probably made this guy up. No, Spenguli's a real guy. A horror host who hosts horror. I haven't seen much of his stuff, but my friend Blaw's a huge fan and showed me a promo pic. And honestly, the idea for the story's pretty solid. A crime at a cosplay convention, lots of places to hide. Even knowing our suspects, there could still be an interesting chase. So, what do they do with it? Well, Honeymoon shows off her costume, meets an experienced cosplay friend of Aster's. Aster dresses like a giant robot, because his brother made a nice build for the con. Just nice. Special, anytime I can get giant robot odd-esque things in my comics is always welcome. And then the Margie scheme takes hold. They're gonna rob the cosplay contest that Svengoolie is emceeing. The contest. Not the convention they helped set up. The contest. Oh my fucking god. There are a lot of ways to count how this is stupid. Number one, they robbed the contest using a generic man in a mask. Now you may think, oh, not having an identifiable costume is a good thing. They can hide it easier. True, but they could also burn the outfit, destroy the ashes, and make sure there's no evidence with any costume they use. And going generic is the last thing you want to do at a con, and specifically for cosplaying. This is a con where people are going as characters in a strip that, as I mentioned, is crossed over with the Spirit and various newspaper comics. So odds are they could get the rights to a few cosplay cameos pretty easy. Having Middle Margie who does the robbery blend into the background not only would have been more interesting, but also would have been smarter. Number two, they decide to rob the contest, as I mentioned, of a con they're setting up. That by robbing the con itself and the gate, and insuring themselves, or getting an agreement with the sponsor to pay for any theft, they could both make the money they spent on setting up the con back and net the gate and then leave town before anyone notices is what they did after a decent period of time. I mean, it's not that complicated. I'm a chubby nerd living in a basement, and I figured that out in about 5 minutes of brainstorming. And it's not just the knock on the characters either. It lacks entirely any imagination when an easy whodunit that could have some cool cameos is right in front of you and you don't take it. You can even use Captain Era's stats. Suicide Squad came out last year. There's an abundance of Harley Quinn cosplayers even after the movie tanked a bit. Do something like that. By picking a popular costume, again, interesting chase sequence, and does something with your theme. Instead, it's just a generic faceless goon steals it and we already know who did it. And that's one of my problems with the comic. We already know who the criminal is, so unless they're doing something interesting, a whodunit just isn't that interesting. Part of the fun of a mystery, even if it's a simple mystery like Scooby-Doo, where it's probably the first person introduced besides the obvious culprit who's not the culprit. I just don't get how you fuck it up so bad. It's not that complicated, and you guys have been doing this for 5 or 6 years now. Just, Jesus, that's a nice, hefty degree of fail. So yeah, after the half-assed robbery, Spenguli says his goodbyes, and in one of the most baffling moves of the story arc, we'll get to the most baffling in a second, trust me. It just ends the cosplay portion. Screw an interesting idea that we actually did do our research. Screw an interesting culture we did our research into. We got another plot in mind, which to me is code for we didn't know how the fuck to do this. It's just a giant waste of what could have been a really fun case, and it's so damn sad and frustrating. And now we come to the reason this was getting our review in the first place. One of the biggest and most idiotic tone shifts I've seen in any comic of any form. Having pulled off the caper successfully, with Tracy now on it, since, he was there, you just couldn't cast Mass Margie. Big Margie, yes, they celebrate. Middle Margie has to take care of tying up the loose ends. So, Big Margie takes Little Margie out for a little nighttime stroll. Cut to the next strip, and Little Margie is scared. Big Margie's telling her not to be a baby. And the next panel shows Big Margie knocking over a Jewish grave with a sledgehammer. That's right, people. The plot about a cosplay convention suddenly stops and combines with a plot about anti-Semitic grave vandalism. What in the flying fuck? I mean, I have seen some stupid things in comics, and we will get to that, but this is just mind-boggling. As I said, the cosplay convention setup does have a lot of story potential. But, nope! We wanted to do a story in anti-Semitism instead of, actually setting one up and having it be poignant, since Tracy's partner is Jewish and demands to cover the case. Despite not being in their jurisdiction, Chief's like, whatever, my life doesn't love me anymore. Just let Dick Tracy handle it. I gotta sleep up my hangover and get another vodka donut. Gerbity-goo. Like, that's not a bad idea. Having them work with the Fed, since the end of the story clearly shows they have a Fed character already they work with. Instead, it's slammed into the story where all the supporting characters go away, and the guest star doesn't get to do anything. I mean, I know Svengoolie's not a fictional character or anything, but you got a named person, even if he's a B-list one that I'm sure a lot of people haven't heard of, he still has a fan base and still seems to be a nice, talented guy. And you just have him show up for about 2 scenes and disappear from the plot, not even providing a clue or anything. And instead, you just make the main villain anti-Semitic for no reason. It doesn't even have a huge impact on the plot other than getting Sam involved. The rest of the plot goes a lot less memorably. Big Margie finds out that Little Margie kept the satchel that they stole the money in. Especially after Tracy and Sam start asking about it when they question them. And Big Margie sets it up to be dumped in a cement pile with some construction workers who apparently like to commit petty crimes and evidence hiding, because of course they do. And then we're just treated to a bunch of boring sequences of Sam interrogating the Margies at their costume shop. And it just, like, even when they do a background search, we don't find out anything about them. We never find out why Big Margie is an anti-Semite. I mean, they give her an interesting backstory, Batman the Animated Series style, to at least, care. It at least upgrade the storyline to more an okay storyline with a waste of a plot and an abrupt plot change rather than this. But no, we just get a boring interrogation that doesn't tell us anything we already know, and then we find out Little Margie kept the satchel from the robbery, and now the other two Margies have to dispose of the evidence. And they're going to do so at a construction site with fresh concrete, because apparently construction workers in Dick Tracy's world are all shifty thugs. I don't know, this is almost over. Dick and Sam were doing some stakeouting. I don't know what the proper term is. Doing a stakeoutery. I'm gonna go stakeoutery. They're doing some stakeoutery and notice the Margies fleeing with the satchel and pursue them to a construction site. Just as Middle Margie is about to throw the satchel in the cement, Dick Tracy catches them. Middle Margie gets over dramatic, and in a hilariously over the top yet awesomely overreactive move, Big Margie tries to stab Dick Tracy to death with a piece of pipe by running at him with it like she has a lance. What in the flying fuck was your follow-up plan there? Murder a decorated cop, one of the most decorated cops in the world, without knowing where his partner is, and expect people not to hunt you till you die? The fuck? Can't believe I got another what the fuck in me after the abrupt shift to Jewish grave vandalism. My god, the storyline's like if they had a Calvin and Hobbes storyline, start with them going to the moon, and then halfway through, Hobbes reveals he has AIDS. Ugh, we're almost done. Margie rants about how you people are always controlling the world, and blah, 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 I'm racist and underdeveloped, blah. Middle Margie does get some good development, basically saying that Little Margie had hardly anything to do with this and didn't participate in the vandalism, and asked them to go light on her. They pass off the FBI, there's no real resolution, and fuck this storyline. While Dick Tracy isn't a bad strip, this storyline is mind-bogglingly stupid. It's a waste of a good idea, and then it dovetails on what could have been a good, tense, dramatic storyline that had nothing to do with anything before, tells us nothing about our villains, and it's just entirely boring and stupid. It's an utter waste of a storyline for a comic that, as I said, is pretty good. The next storyline, which I'll cover on the show at some point in the future, I don't want to get you guys knee deep in dick all the time. Was really good and that tied into the mythology well. This is just a mess that does absolutely goddamn nothing and deserves to be forgotten. I'm Jacob Mangley. Until next time, courage.